again. I kind of like this mask. It's not something I use often, but I use it for some purposes that are, well, it's here. I used it because I wanted to override the mental mind and have you detach from my personality and try to see me for who I am. And if you have some of you who are meant to be receiving something through me or connecting with me or their own soul tribe protector or guide or oversoul, to receive something through me in this way. Mm, um, that's one thing. The other thing is that yeah, I'm really tired because it's really late here. But it's too hot, so I can't work. And I've I recently had a flood, and yeah, that's all done with now. And but I needed time to come back to myself and center, so I couldn't really work. And I'm in a whole lot of molt now because everything is molting, and I'm molting, and I'm sneezing, and I'm swollen from this. I'm really sensitive to smell, so I'm not focusing properly right now. But yeah, I'll do my best. There is some information that I wanted to share, and I shared it in my previous video, but it's mainly for my Serbian speaking viewers. um First of all, now consultations are open. I mean, they have always been open and possible for those who have been on sessions and wishing to expand a little bit and integrate on their experience. If they need some help in connecting with their guides and understanding their process. There have been some people who asked for it, so I mean, I announced it, but they have always been possible and open. They're like an hour or two, depending on what you need or lasting, but they're intuitive consultations, and we're talking. So it's not a guided journey, or it's a session, but it's not the kind of session that you are used to. And there are consultations for those who are wishing to come for a session are always possible, and they're part of the session. They're free, and we're talking on the phone usually, but we're talking before the session too. So this is a part of a session, but this is mainly for the ones who are thinking, or maybe only want this from me, want to check me out, or research a little bit more whether this kind of therapy is for them, or just want to have been on a session with me or somebody else, something similar, so they need a little bit of integration. But mainly people who asked for it are people who have been previously on sessions and needed to understand their own process a little bit more. So yeah, that's one thing that's new, kind of new and kind of opened up. And the other thing is that I created a guided session for regression into past life, and it's for an opening for these kind of sessions. There have been clients who haven't who wanted this session but were a little scared or not properly. They needed a little bit more preparation for it, because people usually when they come to these sessions, they have certain ideas of what hypnotherapy is or what regression is, and that's usually what it everything that it isn't. And although I spoke about it, some needed a little bit more um, something to help them get into the process. So this is for the people who are coming for sessions as a preparation for their session. And from what I've seen from the ones who have used it and came for a session, it opens the space for what we are doing on the session. And it's not necessarily what opens up first, but it opens up something that is difficult for you, that you're doing your best not to face, or you'd rather not talk to somebody else about it, but it's everything you should be working on and talking to somebody, especially a professional, about. So yeah, it's helpful. It's not public because I don't want people who are not wishing to come for a session. It opens up something in you, and well, you need a closure. You need to work on it, or at least talk to somebody about what's going on with you. So this is why it is not public. For the ones who are coming for a session, it's free of charge. It's part of the session. And for the ones who have been before on sessions and are still not ready for the some other session, or just want to expand their connection to their guides and clear up something that's going on lately, it's for them too, who have worked with me before or with somebody else, or for the ones who want to explore and see the way I work and maybe come a little bit later. So basically, if you are in between sessions and it's not time for your next session, or you need to a little bit integrate a little bit more, or thinking of coming at some point, maybe in a couple of months for a session, and this is your preparation, yeah, for those clients, it's not free of charge. You're buying it because it's like one smaller session, 1 hour session. So yeah, but the path for the ones who have called me and arranged the session, and it's a preparation for their process, it's free of charge. So these are the informations that I needed to give you. And when I made my last video, I was really angry. A lot of anger was coming out from me in my Serbian video, and I was not even aware of it because I was still processing what happened during these floods, because it was very obviously geoengineering, and a lot of chaos happened in the city. It happened on the 5th of July. Whether CERN had anything to do with it or not, I don't know, but it was certainly HARP, because there were a whole lot of pipes blew up in different parts of the city, and a whole lot of chaos came out, and the rivers didn't come. It was just from the weather, from the rain that came like pouring. And what I didn't know the last time is that the thunder hit and lightning hit here next to my building. This is the third time. I mean, really. So it created a damage to some neighbors here, and yeah, for the rest of us, some pipes blew up in around here. So basically, us on ground floors and a little bit below had problems, and I was feeling a whole lot of not so good energy. It was moving a lot of fear again, because we all have memories of floods from various history, whether from this life or past lives or from our ancestry, and we all associate flood with fear, so it was pushing out fear. But for me, uh, I freeze when it comes to water. I'm afraid of water, and I worked on it, and it's so strange because it's like from my past lives, it's like a natural habitat for me, but I was drowning in this life, and I was processing so much. Even after that video that I made, I had these dreams with these memories that were coming up, and I was waking up in sheer terror for about 10 days in a row. And I'm not, I mean, I'm centered now, I'm better now, but I was working on it, and there was a lot of anger coming out because it was these lives when pretty much the water was coming out from everywhere, and now it was coming down from below, from the floor, and it was unstoppable. It was like, you know, I wouldn't drown because it was not that much water, but it still created damage for me in my new flat with my new things that are not so new anymore, and not so, they're stinky now. So yeah, just extra work for me. Well, it's beyond my control. There are things that are beyond our control, and I've had things beyond my control for the last, well, forever, but for the last couple of years a lot. But this is something that, I did not postpone working on it, but everybody that I worked with, even plant spirits, were telling me to leave this till the end because it's gonna push up a lot. It's gonna be too much with everything else, and yeah, I see why, because it's ooh, for somebody who's working in the underwater temples and living underwater, I need water to clear, and I need to be next to water, and I need to live next to water, but so much fear to come out. And that fear was really beyond my control. It's not that the circumstances were beyond my control, but the fear that I felt, this freeze response it's not a fight or flight response, it was freeze response for me. I and I mean everything that I saw afterwards, like I saw in my energy when I was clearing myself, I saw some devices that looked like drones, like ethereal devices that were attached, and they were creating this horrible vibration, and there was this horrible vibration everywhere. And I was feeling things, and I don't want to go back to that because it was not like there was like my whole being. What I felt at that moment, although it was certainly not as dangerous as it could have been, but I felt my inner being calling for help, and I did have help. I mean, my neighbors helped me. We literally pushed water out with our hands. But I mean, I don't remember that even when I was through, I lived through the bombing, I don't remember having a reaction like that. So because of that, I know that was not an attack on me. It was general, it was on the city. It was everywhere. So it's not natural. I mean, I have a cat, and the way she behaved days after was not natural. um, in my house, something fell. The radiators fell from the wall. So there certainly have been earthquakes that nobody spoke about. And the days after, I felt movement from the underground, and my cat felt it. So it was not normal. And still, when I stand, like for instance, to do my dishes and stuff, I feel there is something coming through the water that is lowering vibration because I need to clear afterwards. And I'm sure that is for geoengineering and something else going on. And yeah, I'm a little bit. There was a lot of anger coming out from me when I spoke last time about it, because I'm sick and tired of that. And just I don't see an end to all this ridiculousness. And I just yeah, I was not even aware how much movement I was making in everything that came out in that video. But it was, it needed to be said, because nobody was speaking about it here. I mean, they're speaking nonsense on media, and about shark attacks, and I don't know, whatever is the newest thing now, and nobody was speaking. Nobody mentions what happened in the city, in an entire city. I mean, pipes were exploding in on ground floors for people. How is that possible that everything happens at the same time and there are no services helping and not enough people? So it was kind of strange, and whoever is responsible for that. And mind you, what happened the next day after that I made that video, I had a visit from the Philippine municipality office to see how big the damage is and do something about it. So yeah, it looks like you have to post everything here publicly and speak about it, so that somebody has a reaction, so that you receive. I was actually taking photos and sending it to Viber groups and posting it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be helped. This is how things function around here lately, which is ridiculous too. But that's one of the things that was making me angry, because I remember, I, I mean, I remember other kind of responses from people here. We've been through a lot, and mm, at, at least we could rely on each other, because this is how most of us got through. You could rely on a total stranger. I mean, yeah, total strangers help me now too, but you know, people were not responding to each other like this before. We were not afraid of each other as much, and there was not so much fear around. Of course, when there's chaos around and bombs are falling, there is fear, but and in different areas many bad things happen, but there were also people gathering around and helping each other and gathering in communities, and we're not having communities around here anymore at all. It's completely being destroyed. And I'm finding myself also not trusting anybody around me, not trusting the community, because we don't share same opinions. We disagreed before, but because I've been attacked lately so much that I don't know who to trust anymore. And everybody is in their own processes and in their own stuff. There's a lot of purging and clearing around lately, and people are having a reaction. Like I had a reaction at that moment, but when I literally stopped for one brief second, and I was, sane enough for one brief second to say, "Can you please send me help?" I did receive help when I did that, but when I was trying to rely on myself to do everything on my own, and I wasn't even relying on myself because I was just paralyzed and I was watching what's going on and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I was just, what to do then? What when you lose control, when you don't have control, when nothing, there's nothing you can grab on, there's nothing in the reality around you that is solid anymore, and there's nobody who is acting sane around you. You can only rely on your higher self, your guides, your guidance, and your soul group, your ship, if you want to call it like that. What's been happening lately in my sessions, and I think at least 5 sessions that I had recently or more, were people connecting with their base, with their ships, and with their star system, constellation, or planet, where they're coming from. Oops, there goes my mask because I'm making movement again. Yeah, people tell me that I make too much movement, but this is how I send out things. I can always make movements when I was speaking light language. That happened recently, but even when I speak, I make a lot of, but that's something coming to you from it. It's a transmission too. Yeah, where was I? um, these sessions are telling me that something serious is going on, and we're gathering together, but not in this physical plane yet, but on the upper plane and on astral plane. Because when speaking about ships, that's astral plane, but not lower astral. It's a 4D, and we're moving something thing with what they're mostly doing is preventing disasters from, or creating diversions, so that even if something happens, it can be the least possible damage. So some are placed as a shield and some are placed as a diversion. And for me here in my neighborhood, I took the worst hit this time around. Please don't do that again to me, please. It's not the first time, but this was, it's been worse before in previous lives, and I hope that's not going to happen again. And yeah, what I also see in my sessions that some are becoming, it's not that they're not aware of some things, but that they were not admitting to themselves that the beings that I actually work with or think they work with, or who they are, I don't know, channeling or connecting with, are maybe not their guides. I've been talking about it a lot, but sometimes you work a lifetime on that, and before realizing that you actually made a negative contract or a contract with a negative being, that being doesn't really work for your benefit or the benefit of all, but you're working for them, and they're extracting your energy along with a whole lot of others. So yeah, that's, and some just now who are really actually very powerful beings came to the point of breaking these contracts and making covenants with their um, oversoul, their um, beings who are I wouldn't I don't know how, I'm looking for a word, who are responsible for them, who are there like if there was a hierarchy, who would be their commanding force, not protector, but like their commanders of their fleet, or um, like guides to their to the groups of souls, to several different groups of souls. Because if you look at it as grape, and the grape has very different types, but they're on the same line. So there's one line that goes strictly to like oversoul, or at a certain point avatar. So they're making new contracts with the light beings, like their commanders, and they are they're subordinate to these beings. So they're making connections with them, and conscious connections with them. Again, this is what happened in my latest session. And whenever I have a session like that, something like this happens to me. So I need a little bit of rest. Not that I like to have rest. I like to work and have sessions like this, and I really enjoy them. And it clears a lot, and I learn a lot, and the client receives a lot. But I have a certain initiation myself in that time too. So yeah, that's one of the things that I was seeing happening. And then the other thing is that a lot of people, they're not flipping. I wouldn't say it's flipping. Yeah, it's flipping, but what I've learned through my work, that some people who are so going on your nerves, say who can be the most obnoxious towards you, or just constantly pushing your buttons or pesting you, are the ones who are in the most need themselves, and they're not connected to themselves. They don't recognize their own need, or maybe they're recognizing it, or maybe they're recognizing that you have something that they need or you can help them with, but they don't know how to ask it from you. And I'm talking about, for the people who are working with other people. If you happen to have clients that are constantly calling you or asking you something, or even asking you stupid questions, or challenging you with some things, it, they might not be always in cognitive dissonance, but they're in need. They're in need, and they sense there is something about you that they can receive from you, that there is a help. You might not necessarily call it help, because firstly you have to admit to yourself that you are in need and that you need help to be able to ask for it. And then you have to recognize somebody who can actually help you, and the proper method that can help you. So some are searching, some are recognizing you on an unconscious level. And I've had clients that was calling me all the time with some certain questions. He came once, but then he came for his partner, not himself. He did a session that was not so good session, and then his partner came who had a better session. And then but before that, he spent, like, after the session, he spent like 2 to 3 hours just talking to me, and then he opened up and spoke about his life experiences. And then he was calling me all the time with certain questions, when thinking whether to come to another session or not. But recently, he died. uh, he was not sick at the moment when he was coming for a session. It happened years later, but throughout these years he kept calling me all the time. And this disease developed later, a lot later, and recently actually, and was quite quick. But there was something that was in him that was pulling him, and he was looking for help in this way. And not that I mean, I can't say that I recognized it immediately, because he was at moments going on my nerves too. But I've had other people similar to this, but not as constant. And I have people in my life who are not doing any work on themselves, who are still, I don't know, like a family member who's still drinking, or engaging in unhealthy um, behavior, or other kind of addictions, or having problems themselves, or you have a neighbor like that, and they're constantly picking on you because they cannot contain their frustration, and they have to give it to somebody. And they recognize that you can hold it, and then they well usually they don't care if anybody who can hold it. They will give it to everybody, because usually people like that are um, menace to the entire community, and we all know at least one person like this. And yeah, but they are the ones who are in the biggest need. Sadly, you cannot help anybody who doesn't want to be helped, and who is not recognizing that they need help. Sometimes they do recognize that they need help, but it's not help they're asking. Or maybe they have asked help from somebody at certain point, and they have been abused and used. Their need has been used against them. So they're dragged into negative negative force drag them into this constant recurring behavior that they have to work for them now. And that there are things like that. Not the example that I gave you is not like this. It was something different. It was just a simple example. I didn't mean to insult anybody. uh, this person was a wonderful man, and I'm really sad because of that. But this is how it goes. Sometimes people don't want, they cannot get over this block that they have inside of them. There are some people who think that they can do it, they can do everything on their own, and they don't need anybody. They don't want to open up, especially to things that are too hurtful, because they're afraid it's going to overwhelm them. So they think they worked enough on it, but it it just has a lot of strings attached to it that they haven't found proper cause to what happened to them yet. And this is why they keep, and especially lately, because we're all clearing things, and especially if you meet somebody who is your like soul partner, or your soulmate, or from your soul group, or I don't know, twin flame, or twin ray, or whatever, divine masculine or feminine. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be a romantic encounter, but just when you find somebody who's from your counterpart in any way, and your light bodies meet, it will bring out a lot of clearing. It will bring out a lot. It pushes up, like you pour water. I constantly use this example. When the water came into my apartment, a whole lot of dirty stuff came out of, like it came from the floor, so it brought out other things with it. And when you pour water into dirty glass, that dirt is going to come out. So it doesn't mean maybe you don't have any more dirt, but anything that is unfinished or has been unfinished whenever in your history, it's going to come out to the surface. Not necessarily to hurt you, but to be witnessed and dealt with. So it's going to, not to mention that the light we're receiving from the sun is pouring a lot, and the earth is doing her own ascension, which we're feeling a lot. And then we have the opposing forces that are pushing against it. Whenever you grow in a certain direction, there is always an opposing force. There is always a friction, because in this friction, in this pressure, you actually grow. This is where you actually grow. You cannot grow without this friction and without this pressure. So, I can be angry all I want, because I don't want these kind of experiences that are scary for me, but I still need to deal with my water issues. And of course, I knew that. I knew that before, but it still just pushed it a little bit quicker to the surface. And in these kind of encounters too, it's going to be pushed, because you're receiving a lot more light. You're receiving your light from your counterpart, and you together are creating a lot more, like a spark that blows out. When you click two stones on it, it creates a spark. So it lights up something that maybe was visible before, but it might explode now, because you certainly need to deal with it. Like last year around this time, I had to deal a lot with my brother, as I mentioned, because there were some things there that I couldn't touch before. Not that I didn't want it, I worked on me, but there were things that pushed him to work, to include other people to work on him. And then it also pushed him to accept those other people to work on him and help him, so that some things can be diffused. And I'm using these examples of my own, because it's it's similar for everybody. You're going to be, you know, in the when we're meeting with our before meeting with our solvers, before being able to actually work together, create together, um, have a romantic relationship, whatever, or just publish a book together, whatever. You're gonna have to, and whatever comes out, it has to clear up a little bit before we have to deal with that. We have to sit down and breathe and see what's going on, and what's going on with me, what's going on with this other person, what's going on in the field, what are disruptions in the field, where are they coming from. Most of the disruptions that I've been telling you about is mainly for me not being able to handle my own energy and not knowing what to do with all of my abilities to process energy, not just my own, and not to mention working with elements and stuff. And not only that, there are opposing forces and frictions, but had I known how to hold the field, it would have been a little bit different. But I'm having challenges with that, obviously. It's okay. I'm growing. Yeah, last week I wouldn't say it was okay, but so my point is that there are people, the most obnoxious people are in the biggest need. Yes, there are some who are not present there anymore, who are just shallow or empty or clones or whatever, but I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about people who are living in pain and who are used to being in this pain and who found the modalities to function with it, and it was working for them up until now, but now that things are still not working, and not working anymore as they used to. Or if somebody, like a member of a family, is healing from when you're living in a system, and I'm talking about family systems now, when you're living in a family system that is unhealthy and it's codependent or codependent systems, family systems usually have toxic relations. And when somebody starts healing, the other ones will do everything to keep that one in their position. So that not because they want to hinder your growth, but because they want to keep their system in place. Because if you move away, everything falls apart for them and they have to build it up together again. Not together because they're not together. They have to find a new mode of functioning. They're not ready to heal. They don't want to heal. Some of them will never be ready to heal. Not in this lifetime, maybe in another. Because they found and turned to maybe some forces that are not so good and they're exploiting them. And they don't see that yet. Or maybe they see it, but they don't know how to get out. They're not seeking help. And you can't even help them because maybe they're working out their karma and they still have some lessons to learn from that. And it's their thing. We cannot meddle in it. It's it's so difficult for me, especially when it comes to family members, because I deal with the people's karma when they come to session. We talk about past lives, we work on past lives. So it's always a fine line when you are overdoing it and helping too soon to somebody. And I've been told by my mentors that sometimes I overstep and I help too soon. And I mean, when that really is the case, I'm blocked. I've been blocked several times by their guides, the higher beings that are working with me. I forget what I want to ask. I forget information that I'm given, or the client doesn't receive an information. It just stops. The session is stopped. Something happens, so it stopped. So it's not like I'm over, like I'm overstepping my boundaries, but I had to learn about this. So when it comes to a family member or somebody that you care about, it's really hard, and especially with family dynamics. We still have our karma with them, and we're working out something, we're learning something, and when the other part doesn't want to learn, it's a tug and push and pull, because you want to break out and you can't because you pull, and they're constantly connecting on you because you're possibly the only help, the only resource that they have as help, no matter how obnoxious they are. I know, I mean, I don't see it like that, and God knows that sometimes I had very bad thoughts about some things, but it's that's how it goes. We're here because of that. We're still holding the space for those kind of people, and somehow I've learned when a client like that calls me on that or asks questions, or I've learned to hold a space for that, and I've learned to hold a space for those who are are ready or become ready at certain point to work on them, who are incapable because they have physical disease or incapability or disability, or they're just their intelligence is lower. So I've learned to to hold space for that, but I'm still having challenges with the ones who are directly attacking you and who are very aggressive towards you, and it's a family member or not. And so, yeah, of course, you don't have to put up with violence towards you. You have to cut, especially when you can. You have to find the means to protect yourself, or don't allow them in your space, and they're going to be trying. And some are plainly used by some other forces that are wanting to pull you back in their dynamic, in their story, and in their movie. Maybe you played a role in that movie in the past. Maybe not in this lifetime, but maybe in past lifetime. So there's something that you might have to learn from there too, because maybe you had the same kind of dynamic with somebody, and then you reacted, and then you keep reacting in the same way, not knowing it. And then when you change something, even a different thought, something changes. Not immediately, but it creates. Maybe you have to, and sometimes that means that you have to become a little bit more pushy and a little bit more direct and a little bit more not aggressive, but you say, hey, this no more, like it was for me. But for somebody else it's different. That depends on your story, but they're still trying to keep their reality in place. And this tells you what role you played in their reality, in their subconscious, most likely. Maybe it's usually something we don't like. This is why we feel like we do in these kind of dynamics. But then you have the opportunity to not be that anymore, not react to them in the same way, or just work on uncovering whatever is there and see whatever is needed. It's just basically everybody is in need lately, because when we're in need, it's really hard to provide support and help that we are here to provide or to others, especially if that's your mission. But again, the ones who are being the most obnoxious are the ones who are in the biggest need themselves, and they end up living in their own personal hell, or being sick, or ending up And not that this is justifying their behavior, it's just an explanation of how we should look at things. We can't control other people. This is point of this talk. We can't control everything. We don't control circumstances around us. We don't control, although we are very powerful beings and we can control the weather, but there are circumstances sometimes that are above our control, are beyond our control. And the ones who can are higher beings, our souls, our soul groups, and our oversoul, and our guides. And not to say that you should always surrender to the situation, but when there's nobody else to turn to, you turn to them. And you're trying to push it with your own strength. And then you become depleted. The best thing you can always send to somebody is love. And I'm now as myself capable of sending love in certain situations to certain people, because my reaction sometimes is like sometimes it's justified to be angry, and it's okay to be angry because of certain situations. You should, but then there are ways to express it and still turn, or can you return to the higher beings? At the moment, like, nothing is at our control because we're creating new reality. We're still not seeing it. Well, at least I'm not seeing it. We're not there yet. And I constantly go and come back, and I'm not remembering it as I used to before. And it's frustrating me. But we're not supposed to, because this is a collective dream that we're creating. We're dreaming a new dream now. And what we're creating, we are always creating from a collective dream. But this is supposed to be a new dream with new sets of values and behaviors and conscious dream. And not everybody will become conscious at the same time, but until we do, most of us are holding the space for the ones who are throwing temper tantrums at us. And the best thing would be if somebody else could be holding the space for them at that moment. And usually somebody else do come step up for that. But there are moments when you have to, because you are learning something about yourself in the process. And you're dismantling something of your own in the process. And the best thing that we can do for each other now is to create this dream with love and joy and all of the nice things that we can think about and give to each other, and not nightmares that we used to do and create like we do. We are creating this from all these unfinished businesses that we have, from now, from before, from history, world history, galactic history, God knows when. We're at the time where we're supposed to be creating this beautiful creations, love creations, with all pastel colors that we can think of, that's going to carry new value system with the codes of love and all of the light and brightness that we all should experience, not just the, so not just one of us, but not from these feelings that are so deeply embedded in us that we are not even aware that they're there until something happens to us. So it pulls it out. So this is why we're still triggered. And when we diffuse this trigger, we diffuse it by recognizing it and clearing the energy around it. And then these circumstances stop appearing or lessen a little bit. But we should be creating this love system, love value system, a new creation, new dream from this point, from conscious creation of love, not the nightmare that we used to create so far. Because even if you think you did, when you're unaware of some things that are happening somewhere else, because they don't affect you yet, but they might affect you in some future. It usually is in very near future. It's just you don't connect it. You are still helping create this nightmare, and we're coming now into this understanding of how it is that we are creating through collective dream, something new and something better for everybody. I call it a new value system because we need new values. And these are not new values, these are old ancient values that are applicable to everybody, because what's good for you, it's good for everybody else, and what's not good for you, it's not good for anybody else. Just we sometimes don't think about everybody else. And the thing is that it comes up to the surface daily now, if not like by the minute. It wasn't happening like this so fast before, and this is why we're not able to see it, but we are not able to ignore it now anymore. And yes, more people are understanding and accepting it, and there will be still those that will need a lot more time, or maybe they will be removed from your path at some point. Maybe you won't meet people like that anymore. Maybe they will, because they need to learn from you. I don't know, but when as many of us come to this realization that it can be a lot more beautiful for them too, when it's a lot more beautiful for everybody around them, this creation will be better, will be a loving creation. And ideally, we are all creating from love, wisdom point. It is just that we are not aware of it. Some of us are, but most of us are not. Some of us are here to clear this holographic space. And some of us come from the 12th dimension because we are like engineers and programmers who are removing this virus that happened eons ago, that is creating this distractions and all of what we're doing. We're not doing it through ourselves. Some are, but not through ourselves. we're dealing with it because we're removing it and clearing it from the collective field to our own field, but our field also interfaces this collective field. We enter this collective field to heal it. In this place, in the physical reality, it feels like we're helping other people, healing, doing whatever therapy or energy work or healing work. But in this other plane, we're engineers who are creating this holographic reality here, and we're fixing the holographic game. I won't call it a computer because that's not what it is. It's like a projection of this holographic mind that we're healing there. We're deleting unnecessary things and inserting new things, like new value systems that will be opening more space for beautiful creations. And it's not all of us, it's some of us, but there is enough of us. And this is why I appeared with my mask for those who are still in need to recognize something like that, because through this energy they're surpassing their mind and will connect through their heart to their own mission and what they need to do in this notion. Not everybody is ready. I wasn't ready at some point to understand this, but this is more and more what I'm realizing, learning, and integrating myself and within my energy. It's not always easy. So this is what we say, everything else is an illusion. It's really hard to say something is illusion, like when your foundation start rocking, or the ground that you walk on starts rocking and the water comes out or whatever. But it's still healing and clearing something that needs a change, a reversal, or shifting to a different point. You know, when you break an arm, when you fix it, it hurts when you pull it back and you're in the place where it used to be. So even the healing is not always the most pleasant. I'm not going to say that some things are always necessary. Some things can be avoided. But I'm saying that healing sometimes is not always the most pleasant things, because unpleasant things come to surface. But those were the things that were blocking you, you. You can just take a little bit of time, but you can move it and have a better view. Or those who need to see you have a better view in you. This is the reality that really needs all love. Needs a lot of love. The hardest thing to say sometimes is that you're willing to see what's right before you and what's really before you. But this is all that we need to be doing right now. And the hardest thing sometimes is to just pray for this reality, for everybody in this world, for mercy for them, for grace for them, the wishing them love and health and joy. That is, especially for the people who challenges the most, the hardest thing to do. But it's everything we should be doing. I think I'll finish with this. It went a little bit in a different direction than my previous video, but it's different. The energies are different. Thank you for your attention. And if you need assistance, let me know. I'm here.